The old Victorian house on Elm Street had always been drafty. Sarah Miller knew this when she bought it. A bargain price for a place needing work in the quiet Ohio town of Oak Haven. The realtor had chalked the cold spots up to poor insulation, the faint creaks to settling timbers. Sarah, a practical nurse and single mother to her 8-year-old son, Alex, accepted these explanations. Life was about managing realities, not chasing shadows. Alex, however, possessed a vivid imagination, nurtured by comic books and late-night whispers with friends about things that lurked in the dark. "Mom," Alex whispered one Tuesday night, his voice muffled by the thick quilt pulled up to his chin. "Did you hear that?" Sarah paused in the hallway outside his room, her arms laden with folded laundry. "Hear what, sweetie?" Probably just the wind rattling that loose shutter downstairs again. Or Mr. Whiskers chasing a dust bunny. The old tabby cat was currently sprawled across her own bed, fast asleep. "It wasn't the wind," Alex insisted, his wide eyes fixed on the closet door across the room. The closet was deep, almost cavernous, swallowing the light from his bedside lamp. It sounded like scratching inside the wall, like something trying to get out. Sarah sighed, pushing open his door and depositing the laundry basket on his dresser. She walked over, sat on the edge of his bed, and smoothed his tousled brown hair. "Your imagination is working overtime again, kiddo. Remember what we talked about? Those scary stories Billy tells at recess aren't real. They're just stories, like the Bogeyman." Alex flinched slightly at the word. "The Bogeyman? Is that like Babayka?" "Babayka?" Sarah frowned. "Where did you hear that name?" "Mrs. Petrovsky," Alex mumbled, referring to their elderly Russian neighbor down the street. "She told me when I was helping her bring in her groceries last week. She said kids who stay up too late or sneak outside get visited by Babayka. He hides in dark places and grabs naughty children." His small hand tightened on her arm. "She said he has a huge mouth and a long tongue." Sarah suppressed a flicker of irritation. Mrs. Petrovsky meant well, but her old-world superstitions could be unsettling. "Alex, honey, Mrs. Petrovsky grew up hearing different tales. Here, we call it the Bogeyman. And it's just a way parents used to scare kids into behaving, like saying the boogeyman will get you if you don't go to sleep. It's not real, it's pretend. Just like the monster under the bed isn't real." She leaned down and kissed his forehead. "Now, try to sleep. Big math test tomorrow, remember? You need your rest." She turned off his bedside lamp, plunging the room into near darkness except for the faint glow of his dinosaur nightlight near the door. She pulled his door almost closed, leaving a crack open, a habit she'd kept since he was a toddler afraid of the dark. Alone in the dark, Alex strained his ears. The old house groaned softly, the familiar soundtrack of its age. But beneath it, was that a faint scuffling? Like dry leaves skittering across the floorboards deep inside the closet? He squeezed his eyes shut, burying his face in his pillow. It's just the house. It's just the wind. Mom's right. Bogeyman isn't real. Babayka isn't real. But the image Mrs. Petrovsky had conjured, that gaping maw, that impossibly long tongue, flickered stubbornly behind his eyelids. The scratching returned the next night, louder, persistent. Sarah heard it this time as she passed Alex's door on her way to bed. She paused, listening. Scritch, scritch, scrape. It wasn't the shutter. That was on the opposite side of the house. It seemed to emanate from inside Alex's wall, near the closet. A cold prickle, unrelated to the draft, traced its way down her spine. Rats? The thought was unwelcome but plausible in an old house. She made a mental note to call the exterminator in the morning and continued to her room, pushing the unsettling sound aside. The following days brought subtle shifts. Sarah would find Alex's toys, his action figures, his prized model spaceship, not where he swore he'd left them. A plastic astronaut was discovered inside the cold, unused fireplace in the living room. The spaceship was found balanced precariously on the highest shelf in the pantry, far beyond Alex's reach. When questioned, Alex's face would pale, and he'd insist, his voice trembling, "I didn't do it, Mom! I didn't!" His genuine fear was hard to dismiss as simple, childish denial. Then came the night of the whispers. Sarah was reading in the living room when she heard it. A low, guttural muttering, impossible to decipher, drifting down the stairs from Alex's room. It wasn't Alex. His voice was higher, lighter. This was something else, a dry, rasping sound like stones grinding together. Her blood ran cold. Heart pounding, she crept up the stairs, every creak of the wood beneath her feet sounding thunderous in the sudden silence. She pushed Alex's door open wider. He was asleep, tangled in his blankets, breathing softly. The room was still. The closet door was shut. But the air felt thick, charged, and unnaturally cold near that deep closet. She stood there for long minutes, listening, but the whispering had stopped. Stress, she told herself firmly. Work is hectic. Alex is jumpy. I'm hearing things. But the conviction felt hollow. The incidents escalated. One morning, every single light bulb in the house was unscrewed just enough to be dead. Alex's favorite mug, chipped but beloved, was found shattered in the middle of his bedroom floor, though no one had been in there. Sarah discovered her car keys in the freezer. Small things, easily rationalized. Faulty wiring, Alex sleepwalking, her own forgetfulness. Yet, a pattern was emerging. A pattern centered around Alex, intensifying at night. The breaking point came on a rainy Friday. Sarah arrived home late from a double shift to find Alex huddled on the sofa in the darkened living room. Mr. Whiskers pressed tightly against him, fur bristling. Alex was crying silently, huge tears tracking down his pale cheeks. The kitchen was a disaster zone. Drawers were pulled out, their contents spilled across the floor. Pots and pans lay scattered. A bag of flour had exploded against the wall, coating everything in a ghostly white film. In the center of the chaos, written in the spilled flour on the linoleum, were crude, jagged letters. Go away. Alex, what happened? Are you hurt? Sarah rushed to him, gathering him into her arms. He clung to her, trembling violently. It was here, Mom, he sobbed, his voice raw with terror. The Babayka. It got mad. I tried to hide in my room, but it started banging on the door. Then I heard crashing in the kitchen. It wrote that. Sarah held him tighter, her own fear warring with a desperate need to rationalize. Shh, it's okay. Maybe someone broke in. Even as she said it, she knew it didn't fit. Nothing was stolen. The doors and windows were locked from the inside. The sheer, pointless malice of the destruction chilled her to the bone. And the message, go away. Was it meant for her or for Alex? That night, Sarah didn't sleep. She sat vigil in the armchair in Alex's room, a baseball bat leaning against the armrest, the overhead light blazing. Alex, exhausted from crying, eventually fell into a fitful sleep. The house was unnervingly silent, too silent. The usual groans and creaks were absent, replaced by a heavy, watchful stillness. She fought against the weight of exhaustion, her eyes gritty, scanning the shadows that seemed to pool thicker than usual, especially around that damned closet. Poltergeist. The word surfaced from some half-remembered documentary. Unseen forces moving objects, creating chaos, attached to a person, often a child under stress. Was that it? Was Alex somehow generating this? The thought was horrifying, but less horrifying than the alternative, that something sentient and malicious shared their home. Around 3 a.m., the light flickered violently, then died, plunging the room into utter blackness. Alex whimpered in his sleep. Sarah fumbled for the heavy-duty flashlight she'd placed beside her chair, her heart hammering against her ribs. She clicked it on, the powerful beam cutting a swath through the darkness, landing squarely on the closet door. It was slowly, silently, swinging open. From the impenetrable blackness within the closet, a low, guttural chuckle resonated. It wasn't human. It was the sound of dry bones rattling in an empty tomb. Sarah's breath hitched. The beam of her flashlight trembled in her hand. She wanted to scream, to rush forward and slam the door shut, but her limbs felt leaden, frozen by a primal terror. Then, it emerged. It wasn't tall, perhaps the size of a large dog, but hunched and unnaturally thin. It seemed woven from the deepest shadows themselves, absorbing the weak ambient light from the street lamp outside the window. Its skin, if it had skin, was a mottled, greasy black. But its face... Sarah's flashlight beam caught it, and a choked gasp escaped her. Mrs. Petrovsky's description hadn't done it justice. Its head was dominated by a gaping, lipless maw stretching impossibly wide, revealing rows of needle-like obsidian teeth. From within that horrifying chasm, a long, segmented tongue, glistening wetly like a slug, slithered out, tasting the air. It had no discernible eyes, just deeper pools of darkness set above the maw. It wore a tattered, hooded cloak that seemed to merge with the shadows, constantly shifting. This was no figment of a stressed child's imagination. This was the Bogeyman. This was Babayka. It turned its eyeless face towards Alex's sleeping form. The tongue flickered towards the bed, stretching with unnatural elasticity. It made a wet, clicking sound, a predator savoring its prey. No! The word ripped from Sarah's throat, shattering the paralyzing fear. Her maternal instinct surged, overwhelming the terror. She lunged from the chair, grabbing the baseball bat. She didn't think, she acted. With a strength born of pure adrenaline, she swung the bat wildly, not at the creature itself. Its shifting form seemed insubstantial, but at the space between it and her son. The bat passed through the creature's form with a chilling resistance, like swinging through thick, freezing fog. A high-pitched, chittering shriek filled the room, painful and alien. The creature recoiled, its form rippling violently. And then Sarah remembered. Mrs. Petrovsky, in her warning to Alex, had mentioned one crucial detail. He fears the light. Sarah fumbled with the flashlight, aiming its powerful beam directly into the creature's face. The effect was instantaneous and dramatic. The shadowy substance of its form seemed to writhe and smoke where the light touched it. The horrifying mouth snapped shut with a wet thwack, and the creature let out another shriek, this one filled with unmistakable agony. It scrambled backwards, away from the punishing light, towards the open closet, moving with a skittering, insectile speed. It dissolved into the deeper darkness within the closet like ink dropped in water, vanishing completely. The closet door slammed shut with a force that rattled the walls. Alex sat bolt upright in bed, screaming. Sarah rushed to him, dropping the bat, enveloping him in her arms, still clutching the flashlight, its beam now pointing shakily at the closed closet door. "It's gone, baby. It's gone," she murmured, rocking him, her own body trembling uncontrollably. "The light. It hates the light." She repeated it like a mantra, a desperate anchor in the storm of terror. It hates the light. Dawn brought no comfort, only a stark, terrifying reality. They couldn't stay. Whatever that thing was, Babayka, Bogeyman, a poltergeist given vile form, it was attached to Alex. It lived in the shadows of their home, and it wanted Alex gone. Or perhaps it simply wanted Alex. Sarah called in sick. She packed essentials with frantic speed, throwing clothes into suitcases, ignoring Alex's tearful questions. She bought the brightest battery-powered lanterns she could find at the hardware store. She didn't explain to the confused clerk. Explanations were impossible. They stayed at a brightly lit, anonymous motel on the highway that night, every lamp blazing. Alex slept fitfully, jumping at every sound. Sarah didn't sleep at all. The image of that gaping maw and writhing tongue seared into her mind. The next day, they drove. Sarah had no concrete plan, only a desperate need to put distance between them and the Victorian house on Elm Street. She drove for hours, heading south on the interstate, the sun high and blessedly bright. She watched Alex constantly in the rearview mirror. He was pale and withdrawn, staring blankly out the window. Was the creature still with them? Tucked away in some dark corner of the car, biding its time? Or had the flight severed the connection? She didn't know. That evening, exhausted, they pulled into another motel in a small town Sarah didn't recognize. She booked a room on the top floor, facing the setting sun. As she carried their bags inside, Alex lagged behind. She turned, calling his name, and saw him staring, transfixed, into the deepening shadows beneath the metal staircase leading to the second floor. His face was a mask of pure terror. "It's here, Mom," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "It followed us. It's waiting." Sarah followed his gaze. The space under the stairs was impenetrably dark. Was that movement? A deeper coalescing of shadow? Or just the tricks of twilight and a traumatized mind? She couldn't tell, but Alex's certainty was absolute. The cold dread that had receded slightly during the bright drive slammed back into her with paralyzing force.